Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So I am coming to you with another weekly video. My name is Molly if you're new to the channel, and I predominantly bring styling fashion videos with a little bit of sprinkling of travel and yoga because I'm a yoga instructor and I have an online yoga membership. But today's video is a little bit different because I have been sharing a lot of styling videos. I wanted to mix things up a little bit. Today's video is all about travel. So I tend to do a lot of traveling. I absolutely adore traveling. It's one of my passions, I suppose, one of my favorite things to research, to experience, to share. And because I share quite a lot of it on my Instagram page in my highlights, I thought maybe it would be helpful just to share basically a video on how I research a trip. So I obviously am only one person. The world is a very big place, and even though my followers tend to have quite a lot of the same interests as me, we might not be the exact same on where we're going on a holiday or what we like to do on a holiday, or when picking a place, what is the criteria. So I wanted to basically give you the backbone of how I plan a trip so that you can apply my little tricks and tips and plan your dream experience and your dream holiday. So yeah, basically today I'm going to be sharing 3 tips. So first, I think is super important is how to pick where you're going to go and which city or which location is going to suit you and your partner or your travel buddy best. Second, I'm going to share how I actually find the places in the city that I'm going to. Mostly now, I will be honest, most of mine is food, but you can apply the same method to discovering galleries or things to do or whatever it is. And then third, I'm going to share how I plan the trip and how I kind of get the most out of a short amount of time, because most of my trips are weekend trips, especially in Europe. I'm very lucky to be living in Europe and from Europe. Weekend getaways can be difficult to kind of cram everything in, so I'm going to share how basically I do that like a pro, and hopefully you'll be able to do the same on your next trip. So let's get straight into it. So first, we're going to touch on how to choose the city or the location. If you're like me, these kind of things you learn as you get older, to be really honest with yourself, and it is a really difficult skill to have, but to not be swayed by what other people are doing. I find myself, especially in the world of social media, it is so difficult to not be swayed by where other people are going and what kind of trips other people are doing. But for me, I think this is probably the most important part, because if you're going to somewhere where you're not going to enjoy the culture, the food, all of those things, then you've set off on the wrong foot and you've made it quite difficult for yourself to create a holiday experience that you're going to love. So some of the questions that I ask myself are definitely the food. Do I love the food? And I know this is difficult because a lot of the time we're trying to explore new food and new culture, but I know myself, for example, that I'm not a big Asian food person. I don't really like curries. I don't really go for Thai or Chinese. So for me, the kind of Asian part of the world is probably not somewhere that I'm going to be touching on a lot. There are just so many other food experience cities or places that I would prefer to be in. And for example, I went to Vietnam for 2 weeks on our trip, on our way to a wedding in the Philippines. And honestly, it was kind of a bit of a dampener. I loved Vietnam and I loved the people, and there were loads of aspects to the trip that I loved. But the food is just such a massive part, especially for me who just like everything is about food. It's such a huge experience, or a huge chunk of the experience when you're traveling, that it's important to be honest with yourself. So do you like the food? For firstly, what kind of experience does the city or the location offer? So for me, again, Vietnam was great, but there's a lot of travel in the holiday, and to get from place to place you had to do a lot of traveling. Now, I don't really like queuing. I don't like being in long bus journeys or taxi journeys or train journeys, and for me, I found that Vietnam we spent a lot of time kind of traveling up and down the country. My favorite part was definitely being in Hanoi. We spent maybe a full day or 2 days exploring Hanoi, and for me that was my favorite part because I kind of got to know the place. I create my own routine, a little bit of a home experience of what, or maybe like kind of what it's like to live there. For me, that's my favorite kind of holiday experience. So when it comes to choosing your city, you can ask those questions like about the food, and then when it comes to the topic of things to do, make sure you're choosing a city that includes kind of things that you love to do. For example, if you're not into kind of a hectic, high energy city, maybe London is not the place for you. If you prefer maybe kind of a slower, lazy kind of city, maybe Florence is the place for you. If you like a lot of culture, a lot of galleries, a lot of history, maybe Rome is the place for you. So just being sure that the place that you're going includes a variety of things that you love to do, because again, you could kind of be trying to get blood from a stone if you're choosing a city that offers none of the things that you love. For me, visiting a new place is all about experiencing it like a local. I want to be in a city and get the feeling and kind of come away with almost a slice of that lifestyle in my pocket, an experience that is really close to the core of what the city or the place is like. And I want to get a flavor of what an everyday Parisian or an everyday Londoner experiences on a day-to-day basis. So this bit, number 2, is my tips and tricks on how I basically find all of those little nooks and crannies in a city that the people in the city actually love and that represent the true nature of the place. So this is the gold dust. So basically how I start is I use social media a ton. So social media is a free library of billions of people on that platform that are sharing bits of their everyday life from all over the world. So what I do is I have a few places that I love to travel to, cities that I've either been to or cities I know that I want to go to, and I tend to kind of be drawn naturally to people that live in those cities. So for example, Copenhagen, I follow a ton of people from Copenhagen, not just because I am fascinated by their city and their food and the way they live, but also their fashion and their culture. And the same would go for people living in Paris or Mexico City. I try to follow influencers who are living in the cities that I want to visit. They will drop little nuggets of gold secretly along the journey of their everyday life. So you'll see when you follow these people that on a night out, on a Friday night with friends, they'll be going to their local favorite restaurant. They'll be sharing little bits from their everyday life, whether it's where they get their coffee, where they do their grocery shopping, where they get their favorite pastry on a Saturday morning, whatever it is, those people are going to be sharing basically how to live in that city like a local. And I always find that this is the most authentic way of finding the best places to eat or to visit in a city, is by following people that you almost admire or inspire you and lead kind of a similar life to you. When those people find those places, there's a little trick that I have on Instagram where I create a folder. So I have a lot of folders in my saved section on my profile that I name under each city. So for example, I have London. I'll show you here what it looks like in the folders, but I have London, Copenhagen, Paris, Lisbon, Mexico City, Madrid, Barcelona, New York, all of these cities that I really want to go to or I have been to before. I continuously, every time I see one of those restaurants that is intriguing to me in a city that I want to go to, I just save it into that folder. that folder sits there safe and sound, ready for me to access it when I am going to the city or when I'm planning my upcoming trip, which I'll get to in the third point. Most cities as well on social media will have food pages. So if you simply type into search bar in Instagram and type in Lisbon, usually if you scroll down there'll be Lisbon foodies or Lisbon food guide or whatever it is, and you'll find pages that actually dedicate their content to food in that particular city. As well as that, usually there are pages dedicated to either countries, sections of countries, whether it's Puglia in Italy or Florence or Venice or whatever it is, will have guide pages, so tour guide pages where they offer a paid service, but they'll also in their Instagram, to create content and to attract people to their page and their service, they will share information about places that they do guides in or places that they recommend. So I always try to follow as well, not only influencers that live in those cities, but also kind of more professional people who might be more into the specific activities that you want to do, whether it's cultural things or history things or whatever it is. So dedicating a little bit of time into finding those pages as well can be super useful. Articles online, ones that I do not trust, are anything by TripAdvisor or Lonely Planet. From my experience, Lonely Planet, TripAdvisor, they tend to put out content more quantity over quality, and I just, from places that I have found on those and reviews that I have found on Lonely Planet or TripAdvisor, have often kind of fallen short. Places that I do trust, if you type in, let's say, food Lisbon or top restaurants Istanbul, and there is an article by Vogue or Condé Nast Travel, those are two online portals that I really do trust, and they often have, like, Vogue and Condé Nast both have travel sections within their magazines and their online world, and they have the top of the top people writing for them. So I would always, when searching on Google, scroll through the results just to find articles written in kind of top established magazines or online portals. My last little trick in this section is to invest a little bit in books, in travel books or magazines. So magazines are obviously that little less on the expensive side, but books for me, I absolutely adore having something that is beautiful, something that is an investment for my home, and they often make the nicest coffee table books as well, and one that your guests or you will often reach out to just to have a little bit of a scroll through. I have a few here that I'll just show you, but the Aceline ones, which are, yes, a little bit on the expensive side, they're about 90 euro, but I have the Amalfi one and I have the Capri one, and I definitely would recommend them. I will definitely be going back to Aceline. I will link them below to buy more of their books, and as you can see, they are really sturdy, they are absolutely stunning, and they have just a really nice selection of obviously beautiful photography with a little bit of a focus to hotels and nice places to stay, but they also tend to have little gems of things to do, which can be kind of hard to find those things that maybe not everyone is doing in the online world. Books, I find, will offer a behind the scenes or secret little gems that you can include in your itinerary. Also, buying books by people who live in cities or who are actually from the city. Two examples for me are Lust for Los Angeles, which is by Olivia Lopez. The love and the effort that goes into these kind of books by people from the city, because they really are sharing the things that they truly love about their hometown, about their city, and it's almost a reflection or a representation of them, so they do put a lot of effort into them. And again, I bought this book, Mad About Copenhagen. It's mostly about the food and restaurants in the city, and it also has a lot of background and lovely stories about the chefs and the people who set up the restaurant. So this, again, a really nice way to find out more about a city is to invest in books. And then last but not least, I have these lost in guides or lost in magazines, and I have Amsterdam, Seoul, Berlin, New York City, Lisbon, Milan, Istanbul, and I'm pretty sure they're about €9.99 or somewhere between 10 and 15 euro each, I think. And you can buy these online and they will be delivered to your home. But these as well have in them a little bit of a background on people from the cities, artists, musicians, coffee shop owners, boutique owners. So they have a really good selection of kind of everyday living restaurants, where to eat, where they get their coffees, and then they also have a lot about fashion and art and just a lot of cultural gems that they put into these magazines. So these are ones that, again, I will link below. So those are all my tips and tricks on how I kind of research slowly for my upcoming trips. This, I find, is a really nice way of kind of making it a bit more of a hobby and less of a cramming before the exam or before the trip. I often find that extremely stressful. This way, all of your research, all of your homework that you've done is stashed away and is ready for you to then go to and take all of the information that you've gathered and create the perfect itinerary. That brings us to the third step, which is how I plan the perfect trip, especially when you're going for a city getaway, and how I make the most out of the time in the city. The first super helpful thing that I do is I go to all of my gathered information that I have in my folders, in my books, and I put them all into my Google Maps and I search them, I find them on the Google Maps, and I star them. So I'll show you here an example of what that looks like, what button to press. You star it, and basically within that city then you will see that, let's say for example in Florence, I have all of these starred places that I can then choose from. I will also do a little notes section on my phone where I will put kind of the top places I really want to go to. I will always call in advance and book all of the restaurants. And then booking my hotel, I will often go to where most of the stars, hopefully most of the food or the restaurant stars are, and I'll try to book a hotel around that area in particular, where most of the kind of cool cafes, cool restaurants are, or most of the places that we are going to be eating. I also plan my days according to all of these little stars as well. So let's say there's a gallery that I want to go to on the Tuesday. I will plan kind of all of our restaurants around that area as well. So we might go for breakfast in that area in the morning, go to the gallery, go to another gallery or touristy thing in that area, and then we'll go for lunch in that area as well. So I try to kind of pocket the city so that we're not traveling up and down and across the city and getting exhausted and grumpy. So that's one way of how I plan my days as well, according to my Google Maps. And another point is not to plan too much. The really big plus of having all of these starred places is that you kind of don't have to plan too much in advance, that you can kind of stumble around the city, you can explore, you can stroll, and when you find yourself in an area that you're kind of exhausted from all the walking, you can then reference your Google Maps and find if there's any starred places in the areas that you've saved. So I always find that when I plan too much or when I have loads of touristy things to do, that I get really exhausted. So I try not to plan too much, have my pocket of saved information on hand, and then try my best just to relax in the city and enjoy just the vibe and the energy. And often you'll find yourself that sometimes you don't have to reference your starred places or your saved places, that you might as well find places, or you might end up talking to somebody or a local that gives you a recommendation. And I think this gives you the freedom to kind of have fun, to enjoy, to be free in the city like a local, but not be left short without yummy food at the end of the day. Last but not least, I personally, and this is really personal to me, but I personally, when I visit a new place, try to do the things that I do at home. And this is something maybe that you've never done before, but instead of trying to kind of jam in all of the cultural touristy things that everybody else does, I would recommend the next time you go to a new city to do the things you do at home. So whether at home it is that you love, your favorite thing to do at the weekend is coffee and croissants, you do that. Whether it's start your day with a yoga class or a Barry's bootcamp class or a run, I would advise you do that, because bringing yourself into a new city is, I feel, part of the whole experience is experiencing you in this new place. And it's a really nice way to come away without being disappointed, to come away and feel like you've actually found a new part of yourself, a new Parisian part of you, or a new Italian part of you, or whatever it is. And I feel the best way to do that is to actually do the things that you do at home in your hometown, and try to do them in the new place, so that you get to really live like a local, or live how you would in the city, which is, let's be honest, the best way to experience a city. So I hope that these 3 tips help you plan your dream vacation or your dream city getaway. And I would absolutely love to know where you're going to next. I would love to hear how you applied these tips, and did it work for you? Which did you feel was the best tip? Which was the best pocket of information that I shared today? And I wonder, can you guess? I have a trip coming up in December, and I wonder, can you guess where I'm going? I will be doing a city guide on the trip on my Instagram, and I will also do a vlog of the trip. So if you want, you can join in a little bit of a game and just comment below, share where you're going next, and maybe even share a little guess at where I am going to be going in December. I really look forward to seeing where you're going, and I really look forward to seeing you next week for another YouTube video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you enjoy the content that I share, I would really appreciate that you subscribe. That way you can be notified when there is new content on my channel. And until the new video next week, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you then.